want to take antidepressants. What if I lose my sparkle, huh?
Why aren't you doing that task the regular way? It's so much easier.
Because the regular way is so boring.
You add so many unnecessary steps. The only way I can do things. My brain likes doing things in a weird, backwards, complex way. Or else I won't do it at all. You're just stubborn. Oh yeah, no, the bees are super stubborn. The bees? It's Dave's way or the highway. I just gotta follow the dopamine. Just call it ADHD.
ADHD and eating disorders literally go hand in hand, and I don't know why we don't talk about this more, so allow me. First things first, not only is binge eating disorder a real eating disorder, it's the most common in the entire world. And when it comes to food and appetite problems that are associated with binge eating disorder, the most commonly misdiagnosis is ADHD. Which is crazy to me because in a study done by Duke University, about 30% of all adults with binge eating disorder also have a history of ADHD. And there's a bunch of reasons why people with ADHD binge eat. I mean, sometimes, like, if you're like me, you'll just get really hyperfixated on tasks for a really long time, forget to eat completely, and then by the time you're ready to eat, you binge on 1,000 calories because you're just so hungry. We also know that ADHD is a dopamine deficiency, and what gives your brain dopamine? Eating a whole bunch of high-calorie foods in one sitting. And don't even get me started on the weird food hyperfixations, right? Anyway, this just affects a lot of people. Like, let's talk about it more.
I'd like to take a minute to remind you to embrace your weird. A lot of us neurodivergent folks go through life feeling like the misfit and the big weirdo. Sometimes it makes us feel self-conscious, so we hide those things about ourselves. Trust me when I tell you that I was not truly happy until I finally loved the weird things about myself. For instance, I love smoked sardines. I deprived myself of them for probably 20 years because I was embarrassed of that. Then I realized that those, black olives and walnuts, some of my favorite foods, are all really good for you, particularly me who has an inflammation problem. So one day I stuck them all in a blender and I made a really awesome paste to put on my crackers. Will most people find this disgusting? Probably. They don't have to like it. I'm the one eating it. I've also gotten a lot of flack from loved ones for just eating a sweet potato for dinner. I wrap it in a wet paper towel, I stab it with a knife a few times, and then I stick it in the microwave. Then when it's done, I'll probably put some butter in it. Maybe some cheese, maybe some nut butter. But to most people, that doesn't look like a meal. And that's fine. It's better than avoiding dinner altogether because I didn't want to prep it. So as long as your weirdness isn't toxic or bad for your health, embrace it. Haters gonna hate.
You tell your beef. He says he's got boyfriend, that I'm scared of him, and I ain't fucking vegetarian. She wants to touch me, she wants to love me.
From my work, like, okay, so she's such an annoyance. She came up to me today and she's like, listen, like,
I really wonder what would happen if I combined all of the COVID shots together. Like, would I get superpowers or something?
and she's like, it's about the coffee machine. I'm like,
Now I want
"What about the
coffee."
machine, right? And she's like,
I wonder what Haley's doing right now. What is that on the wall? Is that a spider? Is that a spider?
and I was like, hey, Janet, well, you need to do your job a little bit there, right? Like,
Good for you, you look happy.
anyways, I kept going off.
I'm so lost.
I swear to God. Are you,
Oh, he's on to me.
are you listening? No, I'm listening. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Do you have the time? 5:07. Why do you keep looking at your watch? I have an important thing at 6, but since I have zero concept of time, I have to hyper-focus on time itself and can't do anything else. And if you don't hyper-focus on the time, then I'll get distracted and then I'll be late. Is that why you go to work like 3 hours early and just sit in the parking lot? Yep, or else I'd be late. It's all or nothing. So is time blindness the same reason why you hyper-focused on Candy Crush for 16 hours without eating or sleeping? That was 16, holy shit. Yeah, that's exactly why.
ADHD moods that I wish I didn't have to constantly experience but always will. Volume control. Now, for those of you who don't know, people with ADHD don't really actually have a deficit of anything. It's really a misnomer. What we really have a problem with is regulation. And for me, volume regulation is a nightmare because if I get excited, I will project. I was a theater kid, and so I was taught to project. And so when I get really excited about something, I tend to get loud. And I'm sorry for those of you who've had to actually be in the same room as me. I'm not doing it on purpose. None of us really do it on purpose, but when I see something that excites me, say for example, Dino Nuggies. I love me a Dino Nuggie, but every single time I talk about them with my fiance, they have to be like, Will, for the love of God, lower your volume. Like, we don't even say you're shouting anymore. We just have to say lower your volume, because when I'm shouting, you know I'm shouting. Or maybe you don't. Either way, I love Nuggies.
Alright, let's see what I got sent today.
I'm a doctor with ADHD, and I genuinely believe that ADHD can be a superpower.
Okay, well at least you said it can be instead of it is.
People with ADHD can still accomplish great things, they just have to use the power of hyperfocus.
Is that like by the power of Grayskull? Like what the? Like there's a fucking on-off switch?
Hyperfocus is a semi-controversial state where...
Wait, semi-controversial? Wait, what? Are you still talking about the power of Grayskull? I'm confused.
For me, the secret to unlocking my hyperfocus is always engaging in the things that I'm passionate about.
Okay, so let me get this right. So if I have a shitload of kitchen work that needs to get done, I need to do something I'm passionate about, so like play video games? How the fuck does that help me get the dishes done? And what's your doctorate in? Full of shit euphemisms? I need to remember that next time I gotta clean the litter box. Be controversial, go play some music.
I'm wondering if anybody relates to this, and I don't know if this goes out to my neurodivergent community or just to other introverts, or I don't know. But does anybody else ever go into like a public social situation and you might be doing something like this? And in my mind, when I do that, I'm just relaxed. I'm content. It's comfortable for me to just kind of like sit back and cross my arms. But people will come up to me, or the person that I'm sitting there with will be like, "Are you okay? Are you upset about something? Something bothering you? Are you mad at me?" And it's so frustrating because then I feel like I have to overthink my body gestures. And I can't just now sit comfortably. I have to now readjust my body to make them comfortable so that they don't think I'm in a bad mood.
If you get evaluated for ADHD, it's important to remember that this isn't a test that you either do well or do poorly on. It's not like if you do really well, the doctor will reward you with a diagnosis. You're measuring something. And when you're taking a measurement of anything, the most important thing is that it's accurate. Unfortunately, ADHD testing is not standardized, so I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen. But generally speaking, answer all the questions as honestly as you can and do the tasks to the best of your ability. And although it would be nice to get an ADHD diagnosis because that gives you an answer, if the results come back and the doctor doesn't think you have ADHD, you're still one step closer to figuring out what's going on up here. And remember to have fun out there. Good hustle! Now follow for more ADHD content.
The worst part of having ADHD for me is the hyper attention to details that don't fucking matter. I can subject hop and project hop all day long, no problem following the dopamine. Meanwhile, I'm driven crazy by the fact that some lights make noise and some don't. Why is it I'll have the TV volume on 40 but I can still hear the beer in the beer can fizz? Why can I only watch TV with subtitles? Meanwhile, everyone assumes I'm deaf because they say something to me and I say, what? Not because I didn't hear them, it's because my brain couldn't process. And midway through them repeating it is when my brain processes what they said the first time. It's not that I'm deaf, it's just that my mind won't brain, but somehow my brain don't mind. Hit the like for the mild amusement and fall for the disappointment.
Can you turn that fan off? Yeah. And could you hold my watch? Sure, but why? Sometimes I can't think when I have my watch on. I'm sorry, what? I don't know, it's like the same reason I think better with my shoes off.
Okay. So dopamine. Every single ADHD creator talks about dopamine. But why is that? Let's talk about it. Dopamine has the ability to control what you're thinking about, how you're thinking about it, and your morality behind what is right or wrong towards that subject. Dopamine is also known as your concentration chemical, your motivational neurotransmitter, and your feel-good hormone. So the question is never whether or not it's relevant and a good idea to focus on your dopamine creation, because that is the most irrelevant question in the world. This is something where when you are subject to the bad sides behind it, you cannot concentrate well, you have emotional irregularity, you don't feel pleasure the same way, and you're unmotivated. When we focus on this, however, by doing tiny little habitual changes, we are able to feel good, we're able to look good, we're able to act good, we're able to be more motivated, feel more pleasure, have emotional regularity. The benefits are massive. Yes, there are downsides, but there are also unbelievable upsides that help us good, and we've all been in that state of efficient dopamine before. It feels amazing. Trust me, there are ways to do it. Let's talk about it. Ask some questions.
Hey Champ, it's me, your supportive dad. I just want to remind you that it's okay to feel big feelings, and it's okay to like things, even if you had parents who pretty much punished you just by taking stuff away from you, and so you learned that you needed to hide the things that brought you joy and downplay your accomplishments just in case they might get taken away too. You're allowed to feel big feelings, and you're allowed to be proud of yourself, and you're allowed to be happy for yourself, and nobody is going to take that away from you. Have a good day at school, Champ.